Hi, this is Aaron Weimar from the Rocky Mountain Trauma Institute. I want to take a little time to put together a video just to talk about something in relation to the recent tragedy in Aurora, Colorado that I think a lot of people may not realize. Being a trauma specialist here in the Denver metro area and the surrounding areas, I actually work in some of the same neighborhoods that this event occurred. And so thought it might be helpful to just try and put out something that I think people aren't really going to be thinking about as the whole dynamics and whole situation unfolds over the next month or so. The issue at hand is what they call secondary trauma. And basically secondary trauma is anything that we witness or see visually, or if we hear someone tell a story, that a lot of times that event can actually be as traumatic as if we're actually experiencing the event. So obviously over the next, in the first 10 days or so, I think it's been 2 weeks now, they've been replaying audio clips, replaying video clips. And some of these things are actually terrifying. And so if you are continually exposing yourself to these experiences, if your children are just seeing them through different places they go, then that's impacting you. It's impacting them. The example I give to you is, as a therapist who's worked with abused and neglected kids for a long time, about 7 or 8 years ago I went to see a movie called Antoine Fisher. For those of you who are familiar with it, it's a fantastic movie. It's also on one of my favorites list here on the YouTube channel. But there's a scene in there where Antoine Fisher, who had a really tough life, is talking to his therapist and basically says this thing. He says, my mother left me, my father left me, Jesse, and now you. And when that was said, my mother left me, my father left me, I started sobbing in the movie theater uncontrollably for about 20 minutes or so. At the time, I didn't really understand why. I was actually very surprised by the intensity of that response, and left the theater and did some processing and talking about it, and eventually came to the understanding that that was actually the release of many years of stored up secondary trauma of working with child after child after child who had been telling me stories, or stories I had read about in files, about being abandoned, abused, and neglected. And the reason I share that story with you is because I think a lot of people really don't understand the impact that secondary trauma can have on their experience. We take in this information and we have to integrate it, process it, and work through it. And the event that occurred was horrifically tragic, and if we're continually watching these things, it's going to impact us. One of the things that I would recommend is that people become well acquainted with the symptoms of trauma, so they can kind of at least pay attention to some of these symptoms within themselves, within friends, within relatives, within their own children. On my website, I'll put a link up here, hopefully right now, and that'll just allow you to know where to go. There's an actual trauma symptom checklist on my website that you can go to and actually look at, 30 or so of the most common symptoms of trauma. The other thing just to keep in mind is that you really want to limit your exposure to repetitive scenes and audio. Even though the media will continue to cover this, they will in many ways tend to perpetuate the fear in subtle ways. And so I really think it's probably healthier for people to process accordingly, but also to not avoid, but just put healthy boundaries around the amount of time that you're spending focused on a lot of the elements of that. So that's pretty much what secondary trauma is. Again, I would encourage everybody to just kind of consider that as these events unfold related to the tragedy in Aurora. And thanks for watching.